theyeshiva.net.
Thank you, Reb Gedalia. It's great to see everybody this wonderful, beautiful morning. So I just want to tell you this conversation that you're about to be part of, we're about to be part of, is unscripted. I don't think we even prepared one question or one answer, a flow of consciousness, let's call it that. And really what we try to do here, we've done it a few times, Baruch Hashem, with a lot of hatzlacha, is be very practical, pragmatic, and also give a voice to all of the different parts in ourselves. This journey is a journey that's fraught with pain, with questions, with dilemmas, with deep struggles. Someone who says that this journey is just simple and easy and geschmack and delightful is either not on this journey or living in another world or completely emotionally dead or detached. So, Kana ben Shayel, there are real questions, emotional ones, hashkafic ones, intellectual ones, spiritual ones, social ones. So that's what we're here really to do, and open our hearts and our minds to the depth and the truth of this journey of trying to grow ourselves and help our children become who they're destined and who they're supposed to become according to God's mission for each of them. And it always begins with ourselves. So I think let's begin.
Ready when you are. Ready when you are.
I apologize always before if I ask sometimes questions that are personal, because that's the nature. These are very personal, intimate conversations.
By the way, I just want to tell you, you mentioned that we get personal. So it is my feeling after all these years that if we don't get personal, if we can't be honest, if we can't embrace our own flaws and warts and imperfections, if we can't look at them, so we can't be real. And as I say many, many times, it's the lack of our safety to be real that shuts us down and disconnects us. So we live alone. So every time you do it, I must tell you, I so value that you start off like that. Because I think if we don't get real and honest, then we're not getting to the heart of it. And it's the value is diminished. So I'm okay with it.
So here we go. The journey of Kesher Nafshi, the journey of helping our children who are struggling, I think often expresses itself in great changes in a marriage. What does it do to a marriage? How does a couple ensure that instead of undermining the marriage, which it can probably do very easily, because of two reasons. Number one, he may have a different opinion than her. Number two, even if they have the same opinion, the pain and the blame. Oh, if you would have been a different type of mother, if you would have been a different type of father, you were out for lunch, you would go finishing Bavli and Yerushalmi when I was home alone with these crazy kids. You didn't know how to be a father because you're your father and your Gzeda and your Eltazed is trauma. If you would have been a little more secure and confident and not keep them on a computer for 29 hours a day. If they would have been at the Shabbos table. So with all that pain that comes with blame, and maybe different perspectives of how to deal with it, and maybe other elements of pain, a marriage can easily be undermined. What would be your personal advice? And I know your soulmate is here with us.
It sounds like you spoke to her beforehand.
I spoke to my wife before.
You spoke to all the wives. Look, here's the facts. Can I speak openly? Good.
Okay.
So,
his wife said, of course, he can speak openly.
So, this journey, first of all, there's no such thing as a perfect marriage. Let's be honest. There's no such thing. In fact, everyone here who has a perfect marriage, you can leave. You can leave. Okay, nothing happened. Okay. Here's the reality. Kadosh Baruch Hu made men and women in a way where we cannot get along naturally. It's al-TV. This is a fact. Boduk u'menusa, Kadosh Baruch Hu made it that way. Our tchunas are different. There are so many aspects of how we function and how we live, in terms of our emotions, our intellect, outcome-oriented, process-oriented. We know these terms, but men and women do not get along naturally. That takes work. And HaKadosh Baruch Hu, I believe, made it that way. That's the separation of Adam Rishon, to separate the nekeva, take it out, and then say, now yidbak b'ishto, now go work it out. Because if you're that connected, there's no work. The disconnect is what creates the work, where we have to constantly, forever, from the beginning to the end of our lives, constantly be sensitive to try and work out how to make that work. So everyone has a marriage, everybody that is constantly being challenged, the relationship, the sensitivity. And it takes an enormous amount of work. That's, for all of us, we enter this parsha, all of us, with already a normal challenged marriage. Now, here's what happens. When we initially, I know what happened to us, and I'll share our journey, and perhaps that'll be helpful. We were caught completely by surprise when it happened to us. It was an absolute shocking phenomena that we got the phone call and were told about something that went on with one of our children. We didn't see it coming. We didn't know what it was. We didn't feel it. And there it was. Almost everyone, when you get firstly in this parsha, are terrified. We're all terrified what's going to be, especially today when we are so aware of how dangerous it is when a child goes off. We are terrified. Even prior to the shame, the embarrassment, but we're terrified about what's going to be. How far is this going to go? When will they get kicked out of school, and shidduchim, and life, and shame, and everything? The whole, your life collapses. It implodes on you when you realize you're in this parsha, and you are terrified. People who are terrified, it's the same thing with the prefrontal cortex, right? You shrink your compassion, you shrink your empathy, you shrink the normal relational skills, because what you want to do is survive. And what happens is you get tunnel vision, where you believe this intervention, this is what we got to do. We got to stop our kid being friends with that kid, because that's the whole reason it's all happening. This is how we enter the parasha. We limit ourselves, believing if this one Rebbe would just be nicer, if this one friend wouldn't be slapping her down, if we could just stop her doing this or stop him doing it. It's like one thing we think, we actually believe. I mean, I can see already their smiling faces. We fool ourselves, which is, it's a human reaction till you learn the sugya, and you actually believe this thing is the thing that has to change. And if we can get this under control, we can stop this whole thing. That's the dimyan we all enter this sugya with. The funny thing is, though, when you check in with your spouse, you discover they have a different thing that has to stop, that has to change, and it's not yours. You see, the chances of it being the exact same thing are very slim. And if it's not this one, the next one will be different. So what happens is you're both in panic mode, terrified about what's going to be, with your brain informing you that this is what's going to change it all. So when your spouse enters in not quite agreeing with you, which is very highly likely, and more likely the spouse to tell you, actually it's less likely it's them, maybe you need to spend more time with your kid. And it's not them at all, it's not that, it's you. So you get even more terrified. This is going to challenge the best of marriages. This phenomena is unavoidable and will challenge the very, very best of marriages. As we went through this, so we're talking 30 years ago, but when we first went into this parasha, we were terrified, nothing to talk about. We took turns at being depressed. The anxiety was obviously extremely high, and we struggled in the very early days. Baruch Hashem, we had a good marriage to begin with, but we struggled very, very much when this panic set in and the debate started in panic mode about what's the right thing to do next. We then, I think, if I remember correctly, vacillated between the panicky, I've got to do something now, to being so depressed, I'm out of it. I need time off. We actually developed a model for ourselves where when we got to that brink of exhaustion, of frustration, we granted each other time off. And one of us would retreat into the safety of the bedroom and have a few days off out of the parasha because we couldn't cope. But the marriage will inevitably be affected. Now here's the paradigm and the paradox. It's so amazing. It's actually the strengthening when you're assuming you're married. Now, there's a different paradigm for single-parent homes that works just as efficiently. I'm going to deal with the marriage one. Yes, is that okay?
Yeah, sure.
The paradox of all of this is, again, what we, over the time and years, began to understand is the gift of this struggle required that we came together. We recognized that our children desperately needed a secure attachment with us. They needed a clear, secure picture of what we were doing to try and help them, which absolutely required an elevation of our relationship, of our connection, that was way beyond what we ever actually perceived we needed and were living prior to this event. And so what's occurred for us over the years is this, and that's the paradox, it's so amazing, that the parsha itself challenged our marriage very deeply, forcing us to address the issues that we had not yet done. You know, how many of us just leave stuff? You know, there's stuff in your marriage, but you know what, as long as it's not driving you crazy, you leave it alone, you walk around it. It's unpleasant. But we leave the unpleasantness and just get on with it. Because, I don't know,
Is it possible then that our children are unconsciously going into the struggle to save their parents' marriage?
So I will tell you, that's not funny. You know, that's not funny. In systems theory,
You think this laughter was coming from expansion or from tragedy?
It's so amazing because in systems theory, raw, hardcore family therapy, the classic triangle is exactly that, triangular theory, that the child perceives the parents as struggling and they notice something. They don't do it deliberately, I don't think so. But here's what they notice, is when they struggle, suddenly their parents pull it together. And then everything seems to be better to help the kid, right? Right? It's like this, the triangle. And then, of course, the crisis is averted and the parents go their own ways again because they didn't do the work, and the kid falls apart again and they come together again. And then the crisis is over, they fall apart again. And then the kid falls apart again. And this cycle repeats until it's like a programmed cycle, an unconscious programmed cycle.
Until Tati and Mommy get the message.
Yeah, but then they go to Kesher Nafshi. And they get the message, right?
So this is critical. We talk so much about our children, but maybe a big part of the conversation has to be healing ourselves and our marriages.
Oh, there's no stopping. The entire Crisis-Chinuch approach, the way I understand it, the way we developed it, my wife and I developed this together over the years, it prioritizes our relationship with each other and our relationship with our children prior to us doing the clever work of intervening in the children's lives, whatever we're going to do to try and help them. the priority is actually on us. Because otherwise, basically you're doing sticky little things.
Shticks.
It sticks, and it's not going to have long-lasting effect.
So
They drove us to finish off a lot of the work that we probably would have left alone, that I believe most couples kind of leave alone. You reach a certain plateau of okayness.
Right.
And then there's the little stuff, and who has the energy for it, and you don't feel it's necessary. Hey, well, that's the way women are, and that's my husband. That's the way men are. What are you going to do? Kind of let it be.
And they go to their friends.
Yeah,
and that's the end of
yeah,
it.
exactly. This parsha requires you can't do that. It actually forces you, if you're really going to be successful, into such a glorious place. It forces you to look at those bits and pieces in your marriage and work on them, so that the children have the secure home, the secure attachment. On so many levels, it becomes the place they want to return to. It becomes the place of safety now.
What would you say are 1 or 2 or 3 paradigms that happened to you and your wife? What experiential process did you go through to bring your marriage to this new place of?
Now you personal. We didn't agree on this.
I apologize.
Okay, so I'm going to speak for myself. I think the hardest struggle for me was recognizing I got a big fat ego, and I probably thought I knew what I was doing. I was a professional. That was after I went through the depression period of deciding not to be a therapist anymore because it was hypocritical. When I came out of that and got going and really, tried to work through the sugya, it's letting go of, it's going back to what I started with, letting go of that belief. Your brain informs you that you think you know what you're doing. And you get very attached to this belief that it's, this intervention, this thing, this friend, we got to do this. And it took tremendous work on my part to realize that was just today's this. And then tomorrow there's another this. And the next day another this. And who even knows if I'm right? And what I discovered was that was far less important and relevant to the children than then observing us respectfully getting along with each other. The letting go of the ego and being openly marsh of each other, like listening. I don't know who's right or who's wrong. I know we have different feelings and opinions. Just modeling for the children and letting them see us process that respectfully with each other without a hierarchy of who's right or wrong. I think I, as the professional, came into this, with an uneven hierarchy. Am I right? That I had to get over? Yeah, she nodded. Yeah. She nodded.
So it's really, you're saying, the pain that shattered the ego that allowed for a different type of relationship.
Yeah. It was so unbearably painful. Look, everyone here knows that pain. I don't have to talk about that pain. It's a pain that shatters us. It's a pain that puts us in our bedrooms crying on the pillow. It's a pain that makes us feel like our world, our life has imploded. It's the pain where we get to the place where you literally mourn the loss of a vision of a family you actually thought you were going to have. We all fedimioned. We all fooled ourselves. Every bris and every kiddush, we held that baby and we fantasized who that baby was going to be, which neshama of which Heilig Tzaddik must be in this baby, and how they were going to change Klal Yisrael. And we had this picture.
They are, just in a different way.
And we, in order to readjust to the reality of who our children are, we have to mourn the loss of that. So it's enormously painful. These processes, for those of us in a marriage, again, single parents, there is a way to do all this. I just don't want to mesh it in now, it would be confusing. But in a marriage, that's what our marriage is for. And when you reframe it in your brain, that actually my children are going to give me a better marriage. Like when you just let that truth trickle in. HaKadosh Baruch Hu, through my children, is going to give me a marriage I never believed or dreamt I could have. A partner, a connected partner, an equal with me together in life, where the yin and the yang, the ish and the isha, Kabbalistically are merging together to make this work, where each are completely equal and equally supportive of each other, each fulfilling their place.
So I guess we have to graduate from the paradigm of blaming each other and just open to each other in our pain, our raw pain.
Yeah.
And hold each other in that pain.
That's exactly right. And that's not an event. That's a process. It took us time. I think I told my wife this once, that I was, well, if I didn't, this is going to be shocking. But let's see. I hope I told her. But I was, at the very early days when we were in the pain, I had a wake-up call from one of my kids because I was driving one of our struggling kids. I remember very clearly, County Line Road in Lakewood. We were driving back from Jackson. I don't know where we'd been, but we were driving. And she turned to me and said, "Are you and mommy getting divorced?" And I was so flabbergasted. I was so shocked. Did I tell you this? Oh, good. I told her. But I had no idea. Like, I was flabbergasted. I said, "What do you mean?" And she said something, "Well, it looks like it." We were in so much pain.
Wow.
So, I think, in certain times we wouldn't talk to each other. Not because we didn't like each other. There was nothing to say. We were just in so much shock and pain watching our family just like completely unfold under our feet. But that gave me a wake-up call. That was one of the many catalytic moments that made me pay attention. Because I realized it wasn't just she was asking that. She was scared of that. She was scared that might be happening. And she needed us to pull it together.
But a lot of fathers and mothers feel very guilty. How can they enjoy their marriage and really be even playful when my kids are on drugs, depressed, suicidal, anxious, tattooing themselves, numbing themselves, and we're supposed to be happy? What are we, narcissistic, self-centered, Woodstock 60 products? My kids are suffering. I'm a Jewish mother. You want me to be playful?
So I'm going to say something.
Even on a good day, my mother didn't like when I was playful. What are you sitting on the couch for? There's chametz. There's 3 lasagnas to make for Shavuos. There's 20 guests. And you want with my kid depressed, I should be playful with my husband? Are you cuckoo?
I think your mother had a good point. Go clean. So this is going to sound bizarre, but I'll tell you what I came to see. How we got there, I can't authentically tell you. I don't remember, but I know it wasn't an event that we got there, but we actually got to a place where I recognized that my children needed to see that our life, our Torah life, our values, our emunah, our betochen, our life was not impaired by what was happening with them. In a certain way, it was being enhanced. You're part of our Torah life. Your struggles are part of our Torah life. I said this story here again, but I've said it, a number of times, how at one point I was so deeply depressed, I'd heard about another child going off. It was a Friday night, and I'd come home, and I was so utterly miserable, could barely mumble Kiddush, in an undertone, had a quick meal, and I left the table, left my wife with the kids. I benched, and I went upstairs. I just couldn't, I was in too much pain. On the way up the stairs, on the landing, I met one of our daughters, who was on the way out the house to party and have fun, wearing her big day kuna, you can imagine, She was on the way out, And I was on, she'd been at the table briefly. She'd left because I must have been toxic in my depression. And I mean, I really mean it. I couldn't say Kiddush properly. It was, my ruach was so shut, I couldn't do it. And on the way up the stairs, she looked at me and she said something that was so profound and changed my life in this Nakuda. Because she said to me, doesn't seem like your Torah mitzvahs is working very well for you, is it? And then with that, she left.
Wow.
And
Those were her words.
yeah. Yeah. It was a killer. And I went upstairs and I was up the whole night for Shtetzach. And I made a commitment that I'm going to live my Ashkafas. I'm going to live it. I mean, everything we learned in yeshiva, everything we absorbed in the shurim and the drashos, like I wondered, where had it gone? It went? It wasn't working well. That makes no sense. The first place I wanted them to see that was that I can live a happy life, a joyful life, while going through this parsha.
She made you a Baal Tshuva at that moment, didn't she?
She did.
You had to develop a relationship with God.
I want to tell you, my kids probably taught me more about Ruchnius Lemaisa than everything I ever learned.
Right. So 20 years, 25 years in yeshiva and Kailo did not teach you what these
taught me,
kids taught you.
it wasn't, you know what it was like? It was all there in theory,
Abstract.
but it wasn't activated. It's like the kids came along and pressed the button. I knew it all. I don't know why. I didn't live it in the active way I learned afterwards to live it. So the first place I went, I knew, was that my wife and I needed to live a life, a loving, happy life, where our Torah mitzvahs would continue completely, totally, happily as normal. We would go on with life. It was so crucial to what eventually they picked up, because the unconscious message to them was, you are not interfering. You're not outside the framework of God's will and Torah mitzvahs. You're in. If, for example, I would say to the kids many times, let's say a kid was smoking on Shabbos, and I would say to them, if it's okay, I mean, again, you have to know which stage and time to say this. I'm just cutting through a cross-section at a moment. But there was a moment when I was able to say, like, do me a favor, around the house, if you don't mind, that's our place, where we're keeping Shabbos. What you do in your room is between you and HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Hashem is in there with you. And what you do in your room is your business. I felt it was really crucial that they understood Hashem is there in that room with you. You're not outside Torah mitzvahs. You're not outside our world. And you're not interfering with my life. You're actually going to empower my life. And I think there's something psychologically and spiritually so profound in them realizing that, okay, so we're going to work out. You're our kids. We're going to work out how to embrace you and how to make this partial work. I don't know. But I tell you this, the Torah tells us everything. And it tells me how to handle this. And I'm going to handle it within my framework. So we actually were very playful. On one occasion or more, as they got much older, and they would like freak out, about something, and they would inquire afterwards, Tati, you okay? Because they'd like freaked out on me. And I would let them know very openly, I got mommy. Mommy and I have a great life. We're actually enjoying our life. My pain is for you. My pain is for you and your life. I'm having a wonderful life. I'm enjoying my life. And you know what? They told me later, as they became adults, how important it was to hear that. Even though, obviously, as teenagers, they could care less. But there was something it went in on some level that later on, now they, adults with their own families, they've told me how powerful that was to them. That we were not falling apart. That we were, on the contrary, we were loving each other more, supporting each other more, and we were enjoying our life.
also absolves them psychologically from the feeling that they single-handedly destroyed
Correct.
fathers and mothers' lives.
Absolutely.
That burden, and you're exonerating them from that burden.
Same daughter. See, this one of my daughters has been my mentor. I mean, she has. That's the fact, right? My wife is nodding, and she knows it. She knows she and I extremely similar in personality, which is probably why we clashed. Who knows? But she's been my mentor all the way through, and especially in this department of giving me the appropriate feedback. One time, she blasted me, I remember, with a long, painful, crying, hurtful rant against me. I think she was even married already. It was such a valuable rant, I can't even tell you, because the essence of the rant was, when you keep presenting yourself around me as if you're a failure, that means I'm a piece of garbage. Every time you wallow in self-pity, every time you apologize and tell me how ashamed you are, how embarrassed you are, every time you go to this place of self-deprecating, painful acknowledgement of how you're ashamed of yourself and you feel like such a failure, she blasted me that means definitively that she's a loser, she's a piece of garbage. She blasted me for it. It was so powerful, I can't even tell you.
So sometimes in our endless experience of pain for our children, we think we're helping them. We're actually
harming terribly. If I'm walking around with this self-pity that I'm a failure, well, that means they're all failures. That means my kids are terrible, horrible people, losers. That is the most horrible thing to say to a kid.
So sometimes the best thing we can do is really be happy.
Well, that's exactly it. That's why it dovetailed into that. And we recognize the power of us being happy. And getting on with life and being positive about our lives.
Tell the Yiddish mama who was taught for 48 years that your mission in life is to worry about your kids. And it's in every cell of her 70 trillion Jewish cells.
So they have like this, ladies Sidurim. By the brachas at the beginning, they put Tfilas Haderech. You know that. Because every day they go on a guilt trip, right? So I recommend the ladies get the men's siddur, because we don't have it in our siddur. We don't put Tfilas Haderech in there.
Yeah, we just go to the Kiddush.
Exactly. So, yes, it's really
inculcated education.
That's true.
Is a beautiful message of Mesiras Nefesh for family.
Yes.
Which, by the way, God even gave that to the animal kingdom, lahavdil. That mother, especially elephants and lionesses, they'll go on Mesiras Nefesh for their calves, which is incredible.
Yep.
But does it sometimes get distorted and misconstrued to the point that mommy and tati don't know how to celebrate themselves?
So
they're not grateful for their own breath of life. And they start living vicariously through their children in the positive and in the negative. So if you're doing me nachas, I'm the happiest Jew in the world. If you're in pain, I am the greatest loser in history. And how do we heal that then?
See, my wife and I, we went the route. I was fortunate enough to go the route of Chazal. And Torah opened up to me. As a matter of fact, this is fascinating. I don't want to go into details about this, but I put tremendous harvanya into my marriage to work on being respectful and equal and creating this model, because I really believe, it wasn't just I, she did it too. Sorry, I didn't. We both did. But I'm just saying for myself, I noticed this amazing, that the more effort and energy I put into my personal bittul of zich to connect equally, things opened up in Torah to me. It was crazy. I saw things I'd never seen. They just appeared. It was like remarkable. But what appeared most of all was this idea, everyone knows I talk about it all the time, Kodim b'yaseh la'olam we know this Chazal. All of us here live on these Chazals now, right? Vayechula Shemayim V'Oretz V'Cholz and V'Ham means V'Chol Brit Zainam, right? That we came back and we chose and we accepted. And I found the Chazals talking to me. I had friends who sent me Chazals. People started sending me stuff, and it just built a rich literature of Torah where it was so black and white that I chose this before I came back. It was so real to me. So therefore how am I a loser? On the contrary, and I know it sounds funny, but I've said it many times. I think people get chizuk when they hear it, but Mori Berebi, Tzitzal, Mashkiach, Matzel, the one time he said to me, Shimon, he said, if I was the Rabbi Shalom, I would only give you struggling kids. I wouldn't waste my time with the others. And he meant it warmly and lovingly, and he really did, because we had reached a place where they weren't interfering with our Torah life. They were enhancing our Torah life. They were taking us, and I understood that because I understood that Kodem Biyasa La'olam, before we came back, we had asked and accepted this and knew it. That's what Chazal said. That's what it says.
So you really feel that if you could rewind your life 55 years, you would want to go through all of this again?
So this is a fascinating, hashkafically peculiar concept. I mentioned here that I've got a lot of good feedback on the book. Recently, someone, very, very chashuv person, Talmud Chacham, good friend, has been writing backwards and forwards to me, took exception to one line that he felt wasn't true. It's not true. And you shouldn't have said it. When I said in one of the late chapters that my wife and I came to a place where we recognized the gifts that we had had through our children, and I wrote the words, we wouldn't want it any other way. And we had actually come to the place where in hindsight, we would not have wanted it any other way. Impossible. Take a look around this room. Any other way, we wouldn't be here. At least not with me. Now think about it. One of my daughters came, they gave me some sort of award some years ago here. I thought they were going to raise money. Never. I feel bad for them. But there it is. I think they lost money on the plaque. But they invited her up. I was terrified. I didn't want anyone here. I didn't want any of my kids to know that somehow we had got some sort of award associated with their tzaras. So that we didn't tell any of our children about it. They knew nothing. Gedalia, dear Gedalia.
Inimitable Gedalia.
Obviously felt, no, the kids should be here. And he secretly invited up one of our daughters. When I saw her in the lobby that Motzi Shabbos, my heart fell apart. This was the last thing I'm ever going to want, that she's going to see me get an award because of her tzaras. Are you kidding? I was frozen. Matter of fact, I had a drasha that I couldn't give. And when they announced, we sat together, I was completely frozen. And they invited me up to accept this thing. It was like a non-stop train. There was no way to stop this. Gedalia was going to give this award, whether I wanted it or not. It was going to happen, my dear friend. Anyway, I went up there. And b'siyata d'shmaya, I told the olam that in the far corner of the room sits our eldest daughter, Liba. And I said to the olam, if you don't mind, I want to talk to her instead. And I asked her to take a look around the room. It was packed. It was a huge packed room. And I said to Liba, take a look at this room. We're here because of you. I said to her, we're here thanks to you. Not that I'm happy of what you went through. But what you went through and what we all went through together as a family and fought our way through this is here because of you. And my wife and I, we really believe that. We really believe that Kodem B'Yaseh La'olam, Kadosh Baruch Hu showed us each other. He showed us these kids. He showed us these nisyonis. He showed us the pain. And he said, this is lekach nivcharta. This is for you. You want it? Or you want to stay here wherever, Madrega you got in Gan Eden. But you want to go back. This is what you need. This is your journey. This is the work you need to do.
Why is this Talmud Chacham friend taking objection to this line in your book that you're grateful for the experience?
I don't really know, but I think.
What is it triggering in him? I'm just joking.
I think he's stuck behind, as we daven every morning, Al tavienu lidei nisayan. Let me do my tikkun without it.
But this is post.
I think he's there. No, so he's stuck on he understands how I embraced it. That's fine. He's stuck on, if you could go back and do your tikkun in another way, like, why are you happy for this? Doesn't make sense.
Maybe because that's what God wants.
Well, that's what we believed. I don't believe I had another choice.
You got to write to him, I stopped asking what I need from God, and I started to ask what God needs from me.
Ooh. Yeah. It was the journey, understand, for us has been the most profound spiritual, ruchnius journey of our lives. This empowered our ruchnius. It didn't defeat us and diminish it. It empowered it as it's meant to, because that's our gift.
So isn't it fascinating? Because when we start coming to Kesher Nafshi, one of the deepest emotions that so many parents have is, what sin did I commit to have such a Gehenna in this world? They always told me Gehenna is in that world. Gehenna in this world. Especially when my shver comes, my father comes, the uncles come, the chad, the busha, the charpa, the shame, the shvuas is coming. Yeah, I'm supposed to be learning with my kids a whole night. No, that's what we're supposed to do the night of shvuas. Halavai, they should show up.
Sorry.
It's what your soul chose. Even the type of tissues we get.
That's love. Free used.
She wants you to experience her tears, her tissues. Okay. Second best, unused.
I will keep it with me.
And what you're really saying is there's a paradigm shift which comes with tremendous bittul hayesh. When you say, I'm here to be a conduit, that actually these struggles turn you into an Oved Hashem. You actually become a real conduit for Hashem's mission and love and energy, rather than arrogantly imposing what Judaism is supposed to look like on God and on my children.
Everyone here, I'm pretty convinced, I hear the feedback after coming here for even one Shabbos, people tell me, I go home and I feel my ruchnius got elevated here, this Shabbos, one Shabbos. Something changed inside me. So people are nodding. Something changed inside me. And I become more of an authentic Jew. Without compromising my values, my shkafas, my Torah. The technical side of the interventions with the kids, we work so hard in halacha and hashkafa to fine-tune it, to get it right, that it fits. My gosh, it's like I always say, we're not permissive, we're machmir. We're machmir ben adam l'chaveiro, in v'aftarecha k'moicha, in sofib kuch nefesh. We're the machmirim. This fits our world. We're not permissive. We're machmir. So, on the contrary, these challenges, like all nisyonos, take a person to a better place. To become a stronger person. I always say they have 100 meters dash in the Olympics. Then they have 100 meters with 8 hurdles. Which one's the stronger athlete? See, the ones without the hurdles get there quicker. But the stronger athlete's the one who jumps over the hurdles on the way. That's us. That's who we are. There's no question that from very early in life, in ways that none of us can really identify precisely, but our children's neshamas and destiny are intertwined with us as their parents in ways that it's almost impossible to put your finger on. Just like when our children are born, so we know the very limited neural pathways, right? I think we discussed this once or twice, right? The very limited neural pathways. And how do we map? How do we as parents map? We map their brain for them through our interaction with them. I don't think it's far-fetched to believe that we map their spiritual journey through our relationship with them. In fact, it's pretty obvious that's exactly what we do.
And if our souls chose our destinies, their souls chose their destinies.
I mean, it goes, to me, it's axiomatic. I once went to Chaim, and asked him this question. I thought it was a desire that said it specifically, that parents choose their children, children choose their parents. I couldn't find the makor. I went and asked him. He couldn't remember the makor either, but he told me it's true. He told me it's true. I had a witness, I had an aide, a Talmud Chacham, with me. He told me it was true. I had actually taken to him some, I think it went back to the Shari Ora. I had it with me, and that pointed out that we choose everything in this world. And he kept saying to me, you have it. You have it. You have it here. You choose everything, including your children and your parents. Well, it would make sense then in terms of, in Olam Ha'emes, when we chose to come back and go through this, that the children chose us because of this interaction we're going to have, and because of this stretching and this work we're going to do to help them as they help us. And it works both ways.
Healthy people, certainly spiritually developed people, make what we call a cheshbon hanefesh, reckoning. Am I on the right path? We could be skeptical of ourselves. We can ask ourselves tough questions. We can be introspective. That's the sign of all growth. The last few years, you obsessively talk about attachment, healing the amygdala, getting to prefrontal, and everything in your sugyas and parshias with Rashi, Taisus, Rebbe Akiva Eiger, Rebbe Baruch Ber, and all included. Do you ever, and you preach it, not just to yourself and your wife, you preach it to thousands of people, you pontificate it, you talk about it, you have charts, YouTube, now a book, etc., etc. Do you ever sit back, make a cheshbon hanefesh, and say, is it possible that me, with maybe another few partners, but primarily me, are single-handedly, sometimes maybe, causing so many people to make an error, where instead of disciplining their children, telling them what's right and what's wrong, sur meira v'asei tov, in the cherished tradition of our Messiah, I am maybe single-handedly contributing to the spiritual damage of so many families. Maybe I'm right, but maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm right 50% of the time, but maybe I'm wrong 50% of the time. And all these poor parents who have been now up for 3 nights in a row, so that their prefrontal is shot already. from the Thursday night shalom it was done. After Mitzvah Shabbos, they're all on the amygdala level of survival. And now they're open to hear all the rhetoric you're going to inculcate in their system. And go back, and everything they fought for 50, 40, 30 years, in terms of what's right and what's wrong, is now out the window. Do you make such a cheshbon nefesh? I'm sorry for my question. You know, the mafia says it wasn't personal.
Oh, gosh. Yeah, I think I'll take a scotch.
All they got is water
Good
at this
break.
point.
So I'll tell you, I live with a cheshbon nefesh of this sugya. I live in it. It isn't something I every now and again sit back and wonder about. It's something I'm equally obsessed about getting it right, fine-tuning it. I'm aided in that I have to do that whether I like it or not, because I get emails and WhatsApps and visits from people and letters attacking these Yesodis all the time that I have to respond to respectfully and thoughtfully and cogently in a way that helps people understand it. And I think that there's a testimony that, sort of looking back, Lemafreya, the validation I've received for how it really works has been so profound that I think it's an unarguable fact that it works. To me, attachment, is the heart and soul. When I first saw it, I learned it in school like everybody else. John Bowlby, we learned attachment, secure, anxious, avoidant, disorganized. We learned it all. And then everyone else's research afterwards and attachment. I'll be quite honest, I didn't really pay much attention to it in school. It was just another interesting theory. I had no clue yet of the implication of what this model was. It didn't hit me yet. It was another group of ideas about childhood development and how we become personality-wise who we are, but I didn't think much about it. It was the disconnect of the children that I saw in our family and professionally, what was happening in Klal Yisrael, when the word attachment, you understand? When I saw the kids disconnecting, something rang a bell in my head that, well, why are they disconnecting? Why weren't they attached properly in the first place? Is that the reason? What's impairing the attachment that causes the disconnect? That was when I began to understand the word trauma and why, in my description, it's really not a definition, but a sort of trauma. I always say if it was Yiddish, Aramaic, or Ivrit, Hebrew, we'd have to translate it into English. So for me, the working definition of the word trauma is disconnect, because HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave us the ability that when we see or experience in the close proximity of something deadly or horrific, you want to distance from that. You don't want to stay there. You don't want to be ever connected to that again. You want to disconnect from it. So trauma disconnects. And I watched our children, disconnecting from us, from school, from home, from faith. So I wondered what was pushing them away. And then I wondered, were they ever attached properly in the first place? How does attachment work? So I went back to the books and started reviewing attachment theory again. And it was actually at the very first Kesher Nafshi conference. It wasn't here, it was in the Raleigh. The very first one, when I was invited to come and speak. And they didn't actually tell me what to speak on, just come speak. And I sat down and was very thoughtful. What message could be good for us? And I spoke about attachment. The response, I don't know if any of the people were there way back when, but the response was amazing. It gave an envelope, a framework that made so much sense. And more importantly than that, it gave us what we did at home. It gave us a very practical mahalach. See, when I saw, later on in the journey, I saw Parenting from the Inside Out by Dan Siegel. And there, he operationalized attachment. And there was this one little page or two where he mentions his 4 S's. It was his. And it was just agav. It was like he said so many brilliant things in the book. This was just one. It wasn't even that big by him. Not at all. It was just another idea of understanding attachment. When I saw it, it hit me like probably I've never been hit before. When I realized we were looking at a window into healing attachment for our families, for us, our Yidden, for us, how something we could operationalize and that would make attachment work. The more I did it and started experimenting with our kids, we would look at it, and I would think with my clients, and I would actually say to people when they came in, and I hear about their struggles, do you mind if I just give you a model? And I'd like you to think through with me, were any of these missing in your childhood? And I'd go through briefly, safe, secure, seen, and soothed. And astonishingly, people would identify immediately, as I explained it, frequently tearing up and having a deep, emotional experience when it was put to them what they were missing because they never really knew. All I knew is I had this rotten childhood and I didn't feel good. I didn't know what that meant. Safe, secure, seen, and soothed, which again, he says, almost like agav amongst many brilliant things, for me was the attachment model. It was a model that both explained how we went off, what happened, what was missing, and then I saw it on so many levels. On all levels of life, attachment theory starts making sense. Ruchnius and Gashmis, everything. And then it became a model for healing, because I could talk to parents like us, and we could say, let's work on making your child feel safe with you. So it might not be a bad idea to stop hitting him. That might be helpful. What do you think? You think Svei might be, not a good idea? Tell me ways you think your child might not feel safe with you. Do you get aggressive? Do you get angry? Do you get threatening? And how about the subtle ones, like saying, you're never going to grow up for anything. If you don't go back to school or whatever it is, you're going to be worthless. Think through the ways you make. Not meaning to. You don't mean to at all. You're just trying. But think, does it fit into safe? When I did this enough with many of my clients, I'd go through this quite passionately, the safe, secure, seen, and soothed. Ask yourself, are you making them? Are you helping them feel safe? Work for the next month on secure. Understand, are you creating security in your relationship with your kid? And then the same with seen and soothed. So one of the people I was working with, he looks at me and said, so basically you want me to completely shut down, stay in my bedroom and never interact with my kids? Is that what you're saying? And I said, that might be a good start. That might be a good start. Because when you come out, you make them feel unsafe, unsecure, unseen, and unsoothed, well, then you're giving them a one-way ticket to who knows where. attachment is the key to mental health, to living life. We talk about the Shevis Yitzhara as this mitzvah of helping people feel a child. When we bring up a child, it should feel healthy in mind and body, happy, capable of self-love, loving others. It's the tziruf of the Shevis Yitzhara v'Avtarecha Kamecha together produce a healthy human being. Insecure, anxious, disorganized, whichever attachments is a contradiction to that. It actually contradicts that. A person's entire life is social. To be successful in this world, you have to be able to be social. You've got to be able to connect with people. We don't live on a desert island. We live with people. We have our homes and our shuls and our minyanim and communities and extended family and simchas and life. Social, turns out, social skills, high social EQ, is far, far more important to life success than IQ. Far, far more important.
Is that what you learned in yeshiva?
We'll come to that. And guess what? Helps a person activate their own greatest potential in social skills. Because we will all, based on our own makeup, have different potential. But what helps human beings activate the greatest level, their greatest inherent potential in social skills is attachment. Is good attachment. Secure attachment. So basically, the gift of attachment turns out to be the greatest long-term, lifelong gift we could ever give our kids. Ever. It isn't about keeping them from. You understand? It goes way beyond that. It maybe is that too, but it's way, way beyond that. It's the DNA of emotional development and success through the course of an entire lifetime turns out to be having those secure attachments when you're early in life, which then builds that DNA for good social skills. Because with good social skills, good EQ, you're going to have to activate your unique potential that Hashem gave you will enhance everything in your life. Everything. My wife and I often talk about it, that I have such compassion for people who've come through, especially, those streams of people in our world who have not had parents who could give them secure attachment. And we understand what that means. I did. I had a mother, and I credit me, what's activated in me, to my mother. My mother, Aleh Shalom, gave me the 4 S's, all of them. She didn't know what they were, but she gave them to me. She, am I right or wrong? Yep, my wife's nodding. She gave me, like she had I don't know, what can I tell you? Her PhD was in the 4 attachments. That she was gifted, and she gave them to me, and I didn't know I had them. But as I went through life, I discovered that that's what fuels me. That's my DNA.
How do you empathize so much with trauma victims if you're not one of them?
Yeah, so first of all, I am a trauma victim, which is fascinating.
Because you had a father. No, you spoke about your mother.
No, my father was through the war. He didn't have them to give to me.
Yeah.
So a
lot of our fathers.
So exactly. So I had plenty of trauma over there. Absolutely. I had the story of my grandmother who was killed when I was 9 in front of me. She was killed right in front of me, and I believed it was my fault at the time. And there was zero trauma treatment. Let's understand that.
But you lack developmental trauma, I assume, or not?
Developmental trauma, I did not.
Right.
Maybe a little from my father, but I really didn't have it. But I had resilience, you see. I had resilience.
So your mother gave you that core.
Yeah, I had the core of resilience of bouncing back. It was like, I remember just one anecdote. During the 60s in England, there were the coal strikes. Coal strikes, they were shutting down the mines, and they had coal strikes. And electricity went off during the early 60s. If they didn't have power yet, and the coal strikes shut the country down frequently. And at night, suddenly, especially in the winter, it went black. And this was miserable for everybody. Miserable. In our house, it was the greatest delight. We felt it was magical. Because we had, the old days, the JNF used to send out these Hanukkah candles, little boxes. You always had more. I don't know why we had leftovers, but there was always leftovers, Hanukkah candles. It was like strange. Every home had leftover Hanukkah candles. And we had a piano. And when the lights went out, my mother jumped up, lit these few Hanukkah candles on the piano, and my brothers and I stood around the piano. And we sang. And she played the piano and we sang. And it was magical. Mm. And I think that she put into us that, however hard it is, you're going to grow from it. You're going to have a good time. So while the whole country was miserable about the cold moments of blackouts, we sang. We looked forward to it. The moment it happened, we leapt up and we started singing and lit candles. And in the light of those candles, she put into our DNA that it's going to be good. It's going to be okay. Let's have a good time. Secure attachment.
As you just started to cry, what was the feeling? You were feeling her love?
I was feeling gratefulness. Incredible gratefulness for what she put into us. Because, like I said, healthy attachment is the DNA of life. It's the greatest gift we ever give our children.
It should probably not come as a surprise to most of us, because the first thing that the Torah says is not good is not idolatry or even adultery or not listening to Hashem, which are all not good. But the first thing that's loy tov, the first thing is loy tov heyos ha'adam levadai. That's the first not good thing in the Torah. Levadai, alone.
Amazing. Never thought of that.
So when that's not in place, you can't build anything. You can go to Maimon Har Sinai, you can leave Mitzrayim, you can have Taryag mitzvahs, but you're alone. And when you're alone, you're broken at your core. And when you're broken at your core, there's no self to serve God or to celebrate Hashem.
Wow. Amazing. Never thought of that. HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave us a world and life that has to be interactive. Has to be.
And then what is worse is I use religion as a substitute for attachment. I use feeling good about me being frum or learned or having nachas as a fake substitute for lacking emotional attachment. So now Yiddishkeit becomes toxic for me.
Well, I think
not only do I lack it,
yes.
I have a counterfeit attachment because of a fakeness.
Well, I mean, in Torah, as I understand it, the pinnacle of all of Torah mitzvahs is davka bay, attachment. The pinnacle of everything is to connect to Borei Olam. And everything on the way is meant to yield direction, support, chizuk. All mitzvahs are eitzes. Eich lidobek, lidbak bay.
And attachment is never intellectual. It's visceral.
It's very visceral.
It's in the nervous system.
And that's where we can go wrong.
Yeah, because we have become very intellectualized people.
Yeah.
And we have a good system of intellect.
Yeah. Yeah, the gift actually, again, I go back to the gift I feel my children gifted me was taking the intellect, the knowledge, and bringing it down here. I didn't cry like this years ago. I'm not just a crybaby. Am I? But I cry naturally and freely now when I engage myself here in a very authentic and genuine way. I know it brings me to tears. It brings me to tears. You know, there's a book on tears, by the way. Anyone should get it. It's the most fascinating book. There's a book on tears where this researcher studied tears, different types, and noticed that the molecular structure of tears are different based on your emotions.
Wow.
Yeah. There are tears of gratitude that are molecularly different than tears of shame. Yeah. It's fascinating. So I think, you know, when you cry, you know, the Shulchan Aruch talks about you're not allowed to cry on Shabbos. But that's that type of cry.
Right.
That's mourning the lost type of cry. But if you can't cry when you see a deep insight that connects with your soul, or when you sing a tune that touches you on a deep level and shafts attachment and dveikus, and that doesn't bring you to tears, you're still here.
Right.
Those tears are beautiful tears. They're connecting tears. Tears of gratitude have to be the most beautiful tears. That, again, the kids bring us there. I'm grateful to them. I'm grateful to my mother, what she gave me. And I'm certainly grateful to my children for activating me out of the doldrums of intellect into the heartfelt, lived experience, the present moment of connection. I don't know there's any richer experience any of us will ever have than the experience of connection, of true connection. That connected moment. And this parsha forces us there. Because if we don't get there, we're not going to succeed. It's not going to work.
So you're saying, I cannot provide my children attachment if I don't know what it is.
Correct. As my father didn't know, I mean, he was scarred from the war, and so he had areas, but there were pockets of attachment. My mother, and I do not understand it, she also went through the war, and she went through, you know, she was taken away from home her whole teenage years. Finally, she lived with Goyim in the countryside during the Blitz of London. But she just was one of those strange, unusual brias in the world. And she just did the attachment well. There was never a doubt with my mother that we were going to be successful and happy. And we were poor. We were very, very poor after the war. You know, my father lost the house. It was, the mortgage was £10 sterling a month. And it was too much, and he lost the house because he couldn't afford £10 sterling a month. So we lost our house. We were poor, but we felt rich. That's what my mother did.
What would be the steps you would guide people to begin healing attachment with ourselves? 1, 2, 3 steps that we can do.
So,
because when everybody goes home, so if one of our sons might come into the kitchen tonight without a yarmulke, or one of our daughters may come in dressed with bigdei kahuna, and we right away get rattled, like my family, and I have little kids, and chinuch, and shvuas, and aser sadibris, and sneas, and your mother-in-law's coming for shvuas, of course, to witness the pre-Eitz Hadas experience. So we were Kesher Nafshi, and we heard Russell, attachment, prefrontal, 4 S's and all that, and we heard all the speeches, and everyone was inspired. So I'm going to say the right thing. But I think what you're suggesting is that if I'm not internally anchored in my own attachment, if I'm not attached to myself, if I don't have empathy for all my moving parts, and really I'm attached to my experience. I'm not just in my head. I won't really be able to do it for my kids in a very genuine way. It may be superficial. I may say the right thing, but I will at some point either collapse or get so triggered or become passive aggressive and in the middle of the meal just make this horrible comment. So how do we begin healing? How do we experience attachment?
So
We may have not had your mother.
yeah. So you're asking me, how can we all get this work done before Shavuos? Because the mother-in-law's coming. Now, you said you had tough questions.
I grew up, I don't remember even once anybody talking about loving God from an emotional perspective. We learned Svarim, we learned a lot. I don't remember anybody sitting down and saying, what is your experience of Yiddishkeit? Do you experience love? Do you experience awe? It was all in the head. Some of us excel tremendously. That connection with the body, with somatic, with the nervous system. This was not part of the language. That's why when you talk about it and others talk about it, myself included, some people get very unnerved. It's like this new Judaism. Is this Buddhism? Hinduism? Pop psychology? Is this George Soros liberalism? Is this left-wing Harvard University? What's next? You know, what else are you going to teach next? Like the body? The body? The body was a shtick zevel. Garbage. It was your nisayon and olam haza to get out of this sick world, to get to your olam haba, and suddenly the nervous system, the body. Have you ever seen a kid, a young man, a young woman, a teenager who has left Yiddishkeit, where you couldn't identify any pain? It was basically your system is weird. I just want to explore life. I'm a curious person. I don't need all of these restrictions. I want to eat and do whatever I want. I have no issues with my parents. I love my parents. I have a good family, good yeshiva. I even respect Orthodox Jews, you know, besides those who don't hold the door open in Costco or whatever, and they drop wrappers in the zoo. But you're fine. I mean, you give kidneys and you do good bikur chaylim and whatever. So I'm emotionally good with all you guys, you know. I mean, some are crazy, fine. I also have crazy friends. But I have no trauma. Have you ever seen, in other words, there's no pain, nothing about attachment. I mean, 20,000 people, that's...
I'll tell you a funny story.
Yeah.
I once spoke at a conference, and I spoke about love and loving our kids, and it was I regretted what I said at the time, but I said something I really regretted. I must tell it, but I was trying to be cute, and I was talking about ODD and ADD. I said, and these kids are OOL, out of love. Out of love. Whatever. I regretted saying it, but anyway, it was a well-received drasha. Afterwards, a family came over to me, as often happens, and they said, can we speak to you? It's really important. And I figured they, you know, which I imagine it happens to you too, they pull you aside and they say how grateful they are and what amazing drasha, and you know, you could help us with one of our kids. You know, they compliment you and praise you. You've had the experience ever? Yeah, probably once or twice. So this family pulled
trying
me.
to heal from the need.
I can help. Free. So they pull me into a room, and I'm preparing myself for this. And they ripped me to shreds with fury and anger. They had told me they probably never felt so embarrassed and hurt in their lives. And they said to me, they have a son who they love dearly, who loves them. And he went off. And he's very respectful, comes, put a yarmulke on Shabbos when he comes to them, no problem. But he lives in Manhattan, he's completely secular, not interested, gone. Doesn't make sense what you're saying, blah, 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 blah. It was the first time I'd ever heard of such a person. I apologized. very, very much to them. And they accepted my apology. And I asked if they would ask him if I could meet him. I'd like to meet him. And he lived in Manhattan, and I went twice out to dinner with him in Manhattan. I called him and I said, could you teach me? Tell me what I'm missing. And I took him out for dinner, and we talked, and I was pretty confident that there either was no trauma of any sort. It could be there's something unconscious he didn't know. He was masking to me. There could be, but there was nothing there. And he was just a nice young man who said to me, just didn't work for me. It never worked for me. But I respect, I'm very happy for my family that it works for them.
So this is one man in your history?
Yes.
From 20,000?
Yes.
Wow.
One.
And the other 19,999?
Every
You always
other case,
identified...
always.
Really?
Easily. Easily.
So when you preach about attachment, this is not philosophy.
Not at all. It's
20,000 people experience with 20,000 people.
Whatever the numbers, it's solidly researched, and it's so incredibly simple to talk about it. Because look, if you take religious attachment, right? For a child, a young child, for whatever reason, whatever abuse, learning trauma, it doesn't matter what they've experienced, but they've experienced something. Because none of us knew about building the profound importance to build really strong attachment. We didn't know. None of us knew. So when trauma struck, it wasn't strong enough, and they rebelled. When they rebel, think about the word rebelling. You know, it's a technical world. You know, but it's really nothing to do with rebellion. Actually, what they're doing is they're not running from, they're running to. What are they running to at that moment? They're running to anything that will make me stop hurting.
Anything that will soothe them.
Soothe them. Yeah. They're looking for anything that would help me disconnect or soothe my pain. It isn't about a lumnus of what's wrong with tefillin. It's, I need right now anesthesia. I need to disconnect or dissociate. So I need something. And as parents and school, community system, they recognize the children that religious expectation almost always interferes with their capacity to run to the thing they need to disconnect, to soothe, because there is so much pain. Unwittingly, we don't know this. None of us knew this. What we thought we saw was rebellion. So we either used the traditional historic model, Tzvei Pech, Musa, you know, you just got to let them know they can't do that. I mean, someone's got to tell them. A Yid puts on tefillin. Like, tell him. Because apparently he didn't know.
It's not how we walk around in this house. You know that?
Yeah.
It's not how we walk around in this house.
Because they that.
They're only here for 18 years.
Yeah, they didn't know. Exactly.
How would she know?
How would she know? Yeah. So they're not running from, it's not rebellion. But we didn't know that.
Right.
So we start giving them mussar and consequences and rules and structure to force them, including bribing, threatening, mussaring, begging to keep the Torah mitzvahs. And all that happens is that this of Torah mitzvahs, which I'm being bribed and cajoled into, becomes the enemy because it interferes with my ability to run to the thing I need to soothe my pain. And inadvertently, we, parents, community, schools, rabbis, the whole works, all of us together, we build religion into the enemy, not realizing that they're not running from religion, they're running to soothing. disconnect. Now, that model is kal v'chomer ben benoi shekal v'chomer. If the source of the trauma was religion, then you're really in trouble.
Right.
You take a kid that's not following inside with his finger until the Rebbe goes over and says, hold your fingers like this, the fingers that are meant to be following, and hits it with a metal rod, hard. Now just imagine the finger that's meant to be following text is now struck with a metal rod hard. So unless you have astonishing attachment, unusual development, where one time that happened, and because you're so connected, so now you follow. And everybody else says, the hell with your books. I don't want to have that. I can't. I don't know why. Because no one told him yet he's got ADD or ODD. No one told him he can't follow because he's dyslexic or he has a processing problem. No one told him your disability, your inability to follow is not your fault. No one came over and said to him, don't worry if you can't follow.
So
It's
for him,
okay.
religion is the source of his emotional breakdown and destruction.
Right.
So when he's 16 years old, now he's 8, but when he's 16, he's done.
What he's done. And what's worse is, we try desperately till we understand to get him to be religious. Either religion simply interferes with his ability to get to the place of soothing, the place of disconnect where I don't feel like I want to die, or religion was the source of the reason I needed to run to a place of soothing.
So giving more religion is simply reinforcing.
It's completely crazy. It's completely crazy.
Reinforcing the pain, which reinforces the need to run.
Exactly.
So we're trying to help our kids often, and we're actually causing them
That's why.
much more
That's
distance.
why when you do this model properly and you work, you say, let's put the consideration, so to speak, of religion aside for a moment, and let's heal the attachments with me. Then 10 or 20 years later, I don't know, but it's not going to happen next week, and it's certainly not happening by Shavuos. Okay. But later on, they feel so attached.
To you.
They don't need to soothe with the drugs or the girls or the whatever they're doing. They don't need that because we soothed their wounds. And now, frequently what we observe is their willingness, especially where religion wasn't the source of the trauma, it was just the thing that interfered with their ability to soothe. So now they can soothe. I can readdress.
What if religion was the source of the trauma? For example, all learning trauma was caused by the Gemara,
Correct.
right? Or even sexual trauma was caused maybe by a person who had payas,
That's
who had a yarmulke, who did it on Shabbos, using Shabbos.
Yeah.
Or Purim during the Megillah, whatever it is.
Right.
So it's all religious trauma. What happens then? So I may be a wonderful mother and father and there's deep attachment, but Shabbos, Yom Tif, Tefillin, Tzitzis, Siddur, Shul, no way.
So
Even marrying a Jew.
yeah, 100%. So
How do we?
So I don't know if we do heal it fully in this Gilgal. I don't know. But what I do observe is where religion was the interference but not the source. The young people, as they mature, willing and wanting, because they're attached to us, to go back and readdress and reevaluate their relationship to religion voluntarily. And even when religious was the source, and I'll give you a perfect example. One of our sons experienced that with Gemara. His head didn't work. And I didn't know this, but the more he tried to learn Gemara, the more traumatized he got. Until he fell out of school, Waterbury, Neve, the works. Today he's married and he's from. And the thing he only learns two sparm. Pirkei Avos and Mesilas Yesharim. That's what he loves. Both reach him emotionally. Both nourish his dveikus with Hashem. But he won't touch Gemara. And I've observed to him, so what? This is your Gemara. This is your Torah. Find your Torah where it talks to La'olam yilmod adam ma shechafetz libai. He got traumatized with the Gemara. I don't think he'll ever touch. And you know what's magic? I tell you, this is so crazy. Just 2 weeks ago, one of my sons-in-law told me that they started learning Gemara together twice a week. He's trying to deal with that trauma too now. Twice a week. He doesn't even know I know, I think, right? He does now. Whoops. Whoops. Hi. But he found the thing he found his way back to learning Torah was Pirkei Avos. And he loves Pirkei Avos. And he'll learn Pirkei Avos Toganak. He loves it.
So maybe what you're suggesting is that even when religion is the source of the trauma, if there's such healthy attachment, these children could learn that the religion that was communicated to them was horrifically distorted from what Moshe Rabbeinu really gave.
And there's aspects of religion, more importantly than the negative, if you don't mind. More importantly than that, what they begin to understand is there's a world of parts of religion that are not related to anything that ever traumatized them, where they can find access and meaning for themselves if we're patient enough never to say it to them. You understand? You can't go back and say, Russell said, so you should be able to find...
Start learning Mesilas Yesharim.
His son's learning Avos. Can you learn Avos? Leave it alone. You have to wait patiently till it comes. But yes, I think that our Torah and mitzvahs is so huge. It has so many aspects, so many facets. There's so many areas where a person can connect in Torah mitzvahs in a meaningful way. It's unlimited, actually. They have gemachs in Lakewood. I remember when they first started, I thought it was so amazing. They started the gemach. That means like this, they had so many gemachs, you wouldn't know what they are. So some bright guy opened a gemach. There was the gemachs. His gemach was to know all the gemachs. So now if you needed to know, is there a gemach? You go to the gemach. That means we got everything. Every gemach goes there. There's every way in Torah and mitzvahs. There's a myriad of possibilities. What they grew up with, many of them, was a very, very limited picture of what it means to activate your Jewishness in relation to Hashem. You want to be related to God? Well, they gave him a very, very narrow picture of how that works. The reality is, it's so huge, it's literally unlimited. La'olam yilmod adam ma shechafetz libai. That's amazing.
Which means you always learn what your heart gravitates to.
I remember when I was in BMG, I was learning one time. I had intended to be... No, I learned all the time. I don't mean that. Sorry. One of the many times.
Pirkei Avos.
Yeah, no, so my chavrusa wasn't there or left early, second Seder. I took a Kuzari, and I found it interesting to learn Kuzari. And someone came over to me, well-meaning. And again, I don't want this to sound cynical. I really, honestly don't. It would hurt me if it sounds cynical. He meant well.
Kuzari is a philosophical work.
Yeah.
By Rabbi Yehuda Halevi. Yeah?
Right. And he came over to me and said to me, Shimon, he said, I was planning to be a Rebbe then. Rebbe, Mashkiach. He said, if you're going to be a Rebbe, stick to the Yeshiva Shemesechtas. Don't learn anything else. Don't learn anything else. And I remember I shuddered afterwards that I didn't know what it was, but this comment felt so off.
Yeah.
It felt so strange. I didn't know what it was at the time, but later on, as I matured and developed, I realized how bizarre that was. Hashem gave us this vast Torah mitzvahs.
Probably also very insecure, no? Like coming from insecurity.
Probably, for sure.
Or judgmentalism. I don't know.
Something, I don't know. Again, I don't want to knock the person. I'm being done the kaf skusi meant
Yeah, I'm sure.
Want to be a Rebbe, stick to Yeshiva Shemazetlas, don't look at anything else. That's like crazy. In hindsight. Again, he meant well. I think what happens with our kids is if we recognize, drop the religious stuff. Why do we say drop the religious stuff? Again, what we're permissive? Chas v'shalom. We're trying to heal our kids. We're trying to heal, allow them to heal, and they have to run to various things to soothe them. If we make religion the culprit of why they can't run to these things, we are directly disconnecting them. We're destroying their attachment to Torah. Because they're not running from it in the first place.
That's what so many people are not understanding. They feel that the attachment is coming, it's the price you pay because of pikuach nefesh at the expense of Yiddishkeit. What you're saying is the opposite.
It's the exact opposite. It's the actual refuah comes through the attachment of focusing on helping out. Imagine what the child feels like when we tune in that right now he's 13, 14, or she's, that age and desperate, not much going on up here. Like I always say, it's offline, right? It's offline. All they want, they're in the limbic. You didn't mention it yet. I don't know why. But, it's your old favorite, the limbic. They're in the limbic, they're maybe even the survival, And all they want is their marijuana right now so they don't hurt. They are not sitting down making like a philosophical, let me think this through. I could put on my phone or I could smoke up. So let me do comparative religion analysis of which ones, can bring me closer to God. I need my fix. I'm hurting. Comes along Tati, well-meaning, and says, just put on your tefillin first. Just 5 minutes. What will it hurt you? It's such a complete lack of grasp of any musig of the pain he's in or she's in at that moment that I need that marijuana and religion is the reason not. Well, the heck with religion. That's what's going on inside. You're doing the exact opposite. The last thing you want to do is try to get them to do some religious behavior at that moment. And I want to say for all the people who are listening, the feedback I get all the time from the Lamdanim, and they mean well, go ahead. Please, did I do anything cynical yet? No, she would have waved. She sits in the front row for that purpose. I get my peripheral vision, gets this. The feedback many people confront me on is B'adam nifel kfi puloisav. Rishayim. We got to keep him putting on tefillin. Adam nifel kfi puloisav. The more he does it, he's going to... So, one time I was trying to help a group of people. I was actually talking to a group of Mechanchim, and that was the kasha on me. We're doing regilas. We're getting them to do it over and over again. So I asked them, my all-time favorite therapeutic intervention I ever do. You want to hear it? So someone tells me like this is what we're doing. We're going to get regilas. This is the best intervention I ever do. I lean forward and very respectfully say, well, how's that working for you? And just wait. How's that working for you? It's not. I'll tell you why it's not. Because Chazal say, Adam nifel kafi pulo sav. There's a vav on the end.
He has to do it.
It's his pulos, not pulos seichem, your pulos that you're pushing on him. It doesn't work. It only works if it's his. Adam nifel kfi pulosav. It's something he chooses. And if someone chooses to do something because he wants it so badly, and he does it again and again and again and again, then Adam nifel kfi pulosav. It becomes him because he wants it. There's a vav on the end. But when there's no such thing as Adam nifel kfi puloseichem, your pulos.
It's also his whole internal trauma is being triggered by
It's
this.
being triggered. He wants his marijuana.
You're
because
creating more defiance.
Exactly. He's running to, and we unwittingly commit the sin of disconnecting him from religion by always putting this mechitza there of religion first until he hates it. Hates it.
So what happens? Could you give me an X-ray of the brain of this boy or girl who walks into the Shabbos meal or the Shavuos meal without a yarmulke or in Bigdei Kahuna?
Yep.
Or other begadim or lack of it, or he just drove and put the car near the house and walks in. Every fiber of being of Tati or Mami is triggered deeply. It's Shavuos, it's Shabbos, it's Yom Tov. I mean, a little respect, you brat. Just a little, but I'm nice. I'm Kesher Nafshi parent. So,
by the way, I'm gone by now. I'm already gone. He's gone.
give me an X-ray of the brain.
Yeah.
I love you, but
Yeah.
respect. Zaidi is here, Bobby is here, the family, Chinuch.
All-time favorite. You think Zaidi went through Auschwitz for this?
What you do in your room is your room. A little respect. You know how hard mommy worked? I mean, just a little respect.
Eat a little cheesecake. Just a little. For Shavuos.
Yeah. And if it's a bad moment, until you do tshuva, go to your room and don't come back, or live in another house. You can live in another house. I'll find you another house. And I have a bunch of little kids. They all have to see that a brother or a sister is a piker, is a pyrik el malchus shamayim. Come on. I need an egel hazav in my house. I need a car pulling up. And you want me to be nice, and you want me to be genuine and authentic. So I'm just going to say the truth. I want to be a truthful person. He has a truthful father. He has a truthful mother. I have Mesiras Nefesh for Yiddishkeit. I sacrificed everything for my kids should have Yiras Shamayim. You know how much Mesiras Nefesh I have? So I should throw it out the window because Russell has some limbic brain theory. I learned Gemara. I never learned about your limbic brain. I'm not an elephant, and I'm not a chimpanzee, and I'm not a reptilian. I'm a Talmud Chacham. I only have prefrontal, as you know. You see how calm I am, don't you? What happens to that child's brain? What happened inside now when he or she observed Tati or Mami being a little angry and rejecting them a little bit? What just happened in their brain?
I can tell you what just happened in mine.
And you had attachment. Whew.
You little.
By the way, this is my therapy session. Also.
Oh gosh.
Not so easy to get a therapy session. You'll forgive me, everybody. I hope you're enjoying.
So, what we know, and you can see it. You ever seen the psychotic look on your kid's face? He's 15 or so. You've seen the psychotic look when you do something wrong and they look like they're going to kill you. They look psychotic. Actually, what you're looking at is the prefrontal cortex offline. It just went offline. Where they went, their consciousness went immediately into the limbic system when they took one look at your face. One look at that face, I promise you, and they're gone. No, this face is different. This is the other face. This is the good face. Keep this one. Trust me. But the other, I can't even look now. But the other face, you know what I see in the other face? Should I tell you, many people, we have a thoughtful face or a tired face. A struggling kid sees an angry face. We're just thoughtful or tired. They see anger. That's why you have to smile all the time. I tell them, hey, carry one of your tefillin. The ladies have a compact, right? In your pocketbook or something. But then, is it called a compact? What's it called? I don't know. What's it called? Six, really. What's it called? I don't know. It's not called a compact? I don't know. Oh, yeah?
They have
Use
a
a phone.
But they could use their tefillin. They don't have phones. They sign to the schools. They don't have phones. But they have a tefillin mirror.
Keep the tefillin. I said,
They even sign their kids don't have phones.
I guess so. So you keep the mirror and you take a look, because if you walk in and you're not smiling, they go right into the limbic. You know what the limbic asks? The limbic brain asks, am I safe? Am I loved? That's all it asks. Am I safe and loved? That's exactly where thank you, I appreciate that you changed your face. I feel more comfortable. Pasha. And so when they walk in, and you take one look at the lack of yarmulke, and your face goes into this dark place of, shame, anger, they go out of the prefrontal cortex in a moment, a millisecond, into the limbic. And if you don't fix it instantly, they go into the survival part of the brain, and they're gone. I'm out of here. He's either out of there physically, but he's certainly out of there in his consciousness. And that's when you get the psychotic look, because the consciousness of the prefrontal cortex is not there. And it looks like they give you that stare.
Wow.
That's what's happened.
What are they experiencing?
Fear.
Fear for their safety.
Fear for my safety right now. I'm fearful I'm going to be embarrassed. Well, remember, if religion has become, which it does to most of them, the interference with my ability to smoke up, to read, to see, and watch a movie, whatever I need to do, well, the longer you keep them, like, how long you need me at this meal? Can you get on with Kiddush? Because they may not last more than 2 minutes. And they don't want to be there because they need to be in their room detaching. So they're out of the prefrontal cortex. And so that's when I always say, why would you even try to reason with someone who is unreasonable, because they're out of the prefrontal cortex? They can't reason. You're just a mazik. But now imagine when they come down, slinking down, expecting this is what is going to happen yet again. And they come down in their big dekuna or chava before the chet, whatever. And you go over and give them a big hug and kiss and say, I'm so happy you came. Come sit next to me.
And you mean it.
And you mean it. Now just imagine that moment in their lives. What's gone on in their brain? You give them a big hug and kiss and walk them and put a chair next to you and say, come sit next to me, Schaefer. Sit next to me.
What happens in their brain?
So the safety turns back on. The security, the attachment, they come back to the prefrontal cortex. And many, many, many times when you do it right, they look at you and say, give me 1 minute. Let me just go get a sweater. And they cover up. Because you made them feel safe. You made them feel attached. So they don't need to disconnect. Right now, this moment. I don't need to run to the movie or the smartphone or the marijuana, because the only reason I was running to it in the first place was to feel safe, because I was frightened and hurting, in pain. And instead, when you embraced me like that, so you became the source of the reason I have no pain. And therefore I want to sit with you, and I don't need that right now. Now, the chances are, once you make Kiddush and you start getting busy with your other kids and they lose that connection, they'll leave. That is not an insult. And what you do is go after them and say, thank you for being here for those few minutes. It meant the world to me. And you let them, go. And again, maybe I'll stay a little longer. What do you understand what happened? by allowing them to go and thanking them for being there. Again, they don't need that to soothe, because we would understand neurologically what we're doing every time. Do you know there's one synapse that connects the limbic, the amygdala, to the prefrontal cortex? One. It's on off. It's so crazy when you understand this. It's on off. And so you could turn the kid in a moment with genuine, authentic love and connection. And I'm not going to stop you. I'm not going to ask you to stay. I'm not. Go, gesundheit. I just want to thank you for being here. And in that moment of that love and acknowledgement and acceptance, full acceptance that you got to go, I understand, they actually hesitate about leaving. Because again, you put them back in the prefrontal cortex. And they want to stay because they feel good being with you. And then when you get distracted, or God forbid you say Dvar Torah, they're out of here. Right?
Chas v'shalom.
Out of there. That's when I developed, Thursday nights by me for 20 years was the most serious work. My learning on Thursday nights were trying to craft Divrei Torah that didn't sound like Divrei Torah. That's what it was. We had it's really amazing, the kids and grandchildren remember that for about, how many years, decades more? 10, 15 years, here was my Dvar Torah at the table. 3 boys went to play baseball. That was how I started for about 15 years, the Dvar Torah at my Shabbos table. 3 boys went to play baseball, and everybody was completely looking forward to what was coming next, because it was always a story about how they got into trouble, and someone broke something, or someone lost something. And the question is, do you think he has to pay for it? It was a grammar. I didn't go into the language of grammar and Zeke, and I didn't do that at all. It was just a story about, but they were wild. They went wild. Oh my gosh. We had debates at our table like Pumpadisa. I'm telling you, it went wild. And especially when, oh my gosh, the girls, women, am I correct, cannot grasp how, if you're Potter midei Adam and Chayiv midei Shemayim, so just pay, don't be an idiot. Like, what's wrong with you?
Yeah, it's a male.
Men say, you're not Chayiv, why should I pay? You're Potter. And the women were crying at the table, furious. If you're Potter midei, you're Chayiv midei Shemayim, just pay up. You're an idiot. And so if I could lead them into those kind of moments, and I worked hard at it. 3 boys went to play baseball. Boy, did we have stories with these baseball games, and the kids loved it. And those kids stayed. Am I right or wrong? They stayed.
So in summation, what you're saying, if I could give a summation, is for most of these children, or all or many of these children, Yiddishkeit somehow becomes a source of tremendous pain.
Correct.
And therefore, in their own mind, their healing, their soothing, their survival, their comfort is by detaching from Yiddishkeit.
Remember, it's not just the source of pain, it's the interference with their ability
to soothe
go
themselves
to the place they want. Because if it's Shabbos, and I need to soothe right now.
Right.
So Shabbos says I can't.
So Yiddishkeit is the enemy of survival.
At that moment, that's right.
Now, Tati and Mami has to choose. Do we join the enemy force?
Very good.
Or do we become an alternative?
Say this again. This is it. Say it again. It's so good.
Yiddishkeit somehow has become the enemy, either because it's the source of my trauma, or it's certainly interfering with what I perceive as survival.
What I need to do right now to survive.
Now, Tati and Mami have a choice. Do we join the enemy? Yiddishkeit. We're Jews. We're Shemer Torah Mitzvah. In other words, my mother and father are also the enemy.
Well, at that moment, I allow my Yiddishkeit to leach into interfering with their ability to take and do their thing. Then yes, Yiddishkeit becomes the interference.
And we're part of that.
And we're part of the enemy.
We're part of the problem.
Which is why it's so amazing when we understand this, we get this, it's so clear to us. Do you understand how this is not there for permissive because they just need this, and nebuch me, I got to give it to them. It's strategic. It's
It's
strategic.
lechatchila, not b'di'evet.
That's right. I'm going to strategically, help them and encourage them, because by doing so, the religion is off the table as the interference.
Yiddishkeit doesn't have to be the enemy.
It's not.
And
That's
Tati
right.
and Mommy are part of the solution rather than part of the problem.
Correct. Like, take the obvious case. Southfield Nefesh. The obvious case. And your child needs something right now and could kill themselves if you don't help them. And you help them and give them money for marijuana so they don't have to go downtown. And God forbid how so many girls I met who went downtown and had to give up their bodies to get drugs because I didn't give them the money for it. And they found out very quickly they could sacrifice their body to get the drugs. And the drugs is just to keep safe. Do you understand? To soothe my pain. And they'll be even willing to do that. And imagine if at that moment I facilitate that instead. I become the champion of survival. The source of attachment becomes the source of caring and love and understanding intuitively. And our kids went through, whether smoking or drugs, and all gave it up on their own, without rehab, without 12-step work, without anything. They gave it up.
Because they had you and their mother to soothe them.
Because that's what we worked on. We wanted to be the source. In other words, technically speaking, I will not let religion or me interfere and force you to go and get drugs. I will replace the drugs by being a loving source of connection in your life. My wife went for years. We always said my wife had 4 wheels, 2 legs and 4 wheels. She was a taxi service non-stop for years of her life, leaping into that car, every opportunity to buy a Slurpee or go to the mall or do whatever they needed. She was there and she went. She gave her life. And there wasn't a question, there wasn't a doubt, it wasn't a suffix. She was gone, ferrying them, taking them, going, doing, buying, whatever they needed, so that she became the source of their love and connection. So they needed less of that stuff. That's how you heal the hole in the heart, because you understand they need it, and you understand it so deeply. Not fine, so you need drugs, here's the money. That doesn't heal anything. It makes them do more drugs.
Because they feel your pain and resentment.
I'm resentful. But when they feel you understand it, and you deepen that understanding in a sensitive and compassionate and total understanding, and you support them and understand it, they need less because they have you. And that's not magic, and that certainly is not going to happen before Shavuos. I'm sorry. At least not this Shavuos. Maybe a Shavuos. You understand? Maybe, but not this Shavuos. That can take a decade. So what? We worked at this we put 30 years into this.
Forgive me for this extreme example, but guide me. The boy comes to his tati, who has a big beard and payas, and wears a shtreimel, or not a shtreimel, but a nice Jewish hat, learns, I don't know, half the day. And his father was in Kesher Nafshi already 6 times with his mother, so he knows, he knows the shtick. Tati, I'm getting a tattoo. I'm getting a tattoo. Okay, you're the father, please.
So,
and Tati wants to call the Chaver Kadisha for himself. Everything he dealt with, marijuana, Shabbos, but the tattoo, there'd probably be a few skeletons, halavai, maybe some other stuff.
Halavai, skeleton.
And here's Ayid Shamayim, really a good father, a good mother, good people, tzaddikim. They're trying to do the right thing. They also have another 9 kids to educate.
So look, this question, honestly, not to mislead anyone, would take a workshop to answer. And the reason is because we haven't defined where is the kid holding, what is, where on their journey, why do they need this tattoo? You understand? Because there's places.
They're wounded. This kid is wounded. This kid is in a lot of pain.
If we could just cut a sliver, and in this sliver, we know very well that I'm not going to talk him out of it.
No.
Can we assume?
Yeah.
We've gone that route.
Yeah, and smacking him. I was like, oh yeah, I'm going back to yeshiva. I'm becoming a Baal Tshuva.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. Oh, right. I never thought that we're not allowed to do tattoos. Oh, right. Oh, I'm going to go to Gehenna. Okay. Bring me back to yeshiva. I'm done. Could we learn a whole night Shmuel's Gemara, please? It's much better than a tattoo. He's not in that place.
Okay, that makes it easier. Okay, but let's assume
what you say will not change
there's
his mind.
Nothing you can say or do that's going to stop him. And what's worse is, remember this, what is the one and only reason that you would stop him getting a tattoo? The one and only reason is your religious values. So when you stop him, you stab religion for him. You have to understand that.
You're telling him religion is unsafe for you.
Yeah.
Religion is the antithesis
That's right.
of your safety.
We have to understand that, or we can't get this.
So you're basically telling him Yiddishkeit is your number one enemy.
That's right.
That's what you need to fear. Because with Yiddishkeit, you will not be able to be safe.
Now, if you really understand that, and this, I'm going to expand your story as a kid who's doing drugs, a kid who's Machal Shabbos, a kid who's very, very immature, very, very impulsive, which is probably why he wants the tattoo. Because his friend got one and he wants a bigger one, right?
Or he wants to show the family that he's done with his community forever.
Right, whatever, but he's impulsive, you can't talk to him, and he's in a dangerous place. A dangerous place. Where do you think this, you see, before we even analyze this, I said it needs a workshop. What do you think is going to happen with this kid if you say no? So it's partial that he's going to hate religion more, because he knows it's not because you can't afford it. He knows you said no because your embarrassment, or technically, halachically, I can't, it's very unlikely that you don't want him to have a tattoo is not coming from embarrassment and shame. Very unlikely. So I'm embarrassed and ashamed and angry about religion, because you're throwing away my religious values. And all that kid's feeling is that, where is he going to go with those feelings? Imagine what's going to be with this kid if that's how he walks out after he said, Tati, I want a tattoo. What's he going to, where's that going to take him? Those feelings of estrangement, anger at his father, who's more, his shame and embarrassment stops me getting my tattoo, I look at it and I feel healed, I feel soothed, I feel disconnected to my trauma and pain when I look at my tattoo. And you're taking that from me because of your busha and your religion. I hate you and I hate God. That's the place he goes to. And that can be a very, very dangerous place for him. It's funny, we talked about this last time, and I had very unusual feedback. Someone sent me an email this week about my answer to you last time about this question. But I'll give the answer first. And the answer is, imagine when we say to him, come, no problem. You sure you need it? Yeah, I absolutely want it. You've gone there, you've done that. And you take him. I told a story last time, a true story of a father who took his kid on my advice. When his kid wanted, they tried many, many times to talk him out of it, and explain the consequences, and blah, 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 nicely, respectfully. But the kid came back and he made his decision. He has to have his tattoo, and he's in a very bad place. The father took him. This was in Israel. And the father went into the tattoo parlor with him. He wanted him to actually choose it with him. Yeah, and he did. While it was being done, The guy, the ponytailed tattoo artist, stopped for a moment, turned to his father, and very emotionally said, I wonder if I'd had he said to the boy rather, I wonder if I had a father like yours, maybe I'd still be from.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. A father came over to me and he said he has a dream of making such a Shabbaton for teenagers who have left Yiddishkeit. He asked his daughter, who's struggling, and she said, of course I would come, as long as no fathers are there, no mothers are there, no rabbis, just us to have fun. And he wants to do it. And here's the question. If you now were not speaking to this crowd, but you had in front of you 600 16, 17, 18, 19, 20-year-old boys and girls who are deeply struggling with Yiddishkeit, with their community, with Torah mitzvahs, etc., and you could speak to them for between 3.5 and 4 minutes. Maybe they'll give you 40 seconds if you're lucky. What would you tell them? You're not speaking to their parents.
I do.
You're speaking to them.
I'll tell you exactly what I tell kids.
And they're all dressed in the pristine mode of humanity before we sinned.
I'll tell you exactly what I do tell young people like this when I first meet them. And I tell them I'm embarrassed and ashamed for what we did to you. And it pains me very deeply. You're all good kids. You'll have a perfect neshama. And we let you down. And I'm embarrassed and I'm ashamed. And I'm really sorry. I'm trying my best to fix it. And if I can help you in any way, just let me know. That's what I would say. We don't realize, we don't have, these are precious neshamas, like anybody else who so desperately need us, so desperately need our attachment to them, our connection to them. They're not bad kids. They're just not bad kids. And we allow ourselves the ego, the busha, the embarrassment, the false, in my opinion, the false perspective on our responsibility to make them do mitzvahs. We, as parents, we have a chiyuv of chinuch habanim. Do you know what that means? It's fascinating. It means we have a chiyuv to educate our children about the parameters of what mitzvahs are and to try and inspire them to do it. We do not have a chiyuv to make them do it. If anything, if there's a chiyuv in life to make people do mitzvahs, it's on the Sanhedrin and the Bezdin. We're not the police. We're not Bezdin. We have no chiyuv to make them do mitzvahs. We have a chiyuv to teach them. And
Nobody got that memo.
No one got that memo. It's like so bizarre. We have no chiyuv to make them do it. And in the zeal to make them do it, we undermined their attachment with it.
Yeah. You're saying our real obligation is to make ourselves connected and happy.
Of course.
Not our
and we
children.
inspire them through our hanhaga,
modeling,
our behavior, the love we give to our spouse, the love we build a home with. And we don't threaten them with einish and pain and suffering.
Wow.
My gosh.
So here, how do we really learn to give ourselves what we need so that we could show up for our children genuinely, authentically, with joy, with inner contentment, fulfillment, without living their life and becoming part of their pain and blaming them for it and reacting unconsciously to our own anxiety and shame and pain and ego and religious ego? How do we really go to a place of inner, authentic connection and attachment with ourselves, especially if we didn't have a mother or a father that gave it to us? And we need to use the words of David HaMelech, Ki avi ve'imi azavuni. And I want to find V'Hashem Yasveni. How do we really do that? Like, give me 1, 2, 3. I got back to the questions.
So we need to be truthful. We need to come out of our own denial. We need to be willing to face ourselves and look at our imperfections, not as something because Kol Nidra is coming up. I better do some quick work, it's El. It's nothing to do with that. I need to be able to look at myself and ask, why do I react the way I do? In ways that I know keep making it worse, keep hurting more. Why? And the answer is probably because of my own childhood trauma, because of my own imperfections. And I have to commit myself to a genuine, honest journey of my recovery, where the dogish is not on my kids fixing them, the dogish is on fixing me. And let my kids witness that. Let them see. How many of our kids, when they got married, the kids, when they get married, they write you this beautiful letter, it's just something special before, and they thank you. All our kids wrote in that letter, they reflected to us how they saw our willingness to work on ourselves as being more important than working on them. They saw it.
Wow.
We're all imperfect. We're not bad. We have to dissociate the word and concept of bad from imperfect. Being imperfect doesn't make you bad. Acknowledging your imperfections makes you heilig. We have to allow ourselves to go on a genuine journey of looking at our own childhood traumas, finding people who can help us with it, work out if it doesn't work this way, find another way, but keep working till you heal it. Find a place where you have to get to a place where you stop hurting people you love. You take control. It says, Yesh tikva lachritzon, v'shavu banim legvulam. There's hope at the end of days. The children will come back to Eretz Yisrael, will live there together. I say a little different pshat. Yesh tikva lachritzon, after all the struggles of lives, ours and our kids, we go through struggles. We're fitzarzed. It's hard. Yesh tikva lachritzon. What's the hope at the end? V'shavu banim legvulam, that the children, we, will return to our own self-imposed boundaries and self-control. Be able to take control of ourselves so we stop hurting people. So we can love people and love our children. We will take control of ourselves. That is the only hope that Mashiach will come at the end of days, that we take control of ourselves. Shavu banim legvulam, our self-imposed boundaries. That's the place. We have to get there, where we can take control of our facial expression, body language, tone of voice, what we say, so that our children will discover they don't need to run to something to heal, because they can actually stay with us and heal there. That's the answer.
We have 9 minutes. So one last question. Is it possible that sometimes a mother or a father experiencing so much pain from one child, 2 children, 3 children, maybe more, and they're walking around with this intense, painful experience constantly, father, mother, both of them, and it sits in them, and it's genuine, they're good people. But is it possible that a lot of their pain, which they're blaming on their children's lives, is really their only way of discovering that this is really their own unresolved pain. They are miserable deep inside. They never dealt with it, but they don't have the courage or the know-how to say, I am in so much pain. So somehow my child's journey and pain becomes the fake container for my own unresolved pain. And that's where I really have to go to.
Nobody, listen to this, Clow. Nobody was ever angered into agreement. You can control through anger. You can't make someone agree with you by being angry with them. And if every time you try to interact with your child, it's coming out through your pain or anger, you know you need help. You have to. It's your chayv kaddish. It's probably the most holy thing you could do in your journey in this world is to deal with that source of your pain. It's more heilig than putting your tefillin on in the morning. One of my clients asked me something interesting. Tell you a very interesting thing. Maybe we can finish with this thought. It's me. Kind of off the record. It was interesting. The session was over. You know, that kind of, all therapists, you have those moments. And this client said to me, do you have a focus every day? Like, of how you think about your life? It's an interesting question. And I told them I did, actually. I told them that when I get up in the morning, I ask Hashem for help, that I won't hurt anyone unnecessarily today. Can I get through the day without hurting anyone unnecessarily? I understand in therapy sometimes I challenge and it's going to hurt. I get that. But can I just get through the day without hurting anyone unnecessarily? That's it. That's how I boiled it down to that. Fascinatingly, this person sent me a photograph or picture, had a picture of the Chazon Ish saying that the greatest avodah anyone can do in this world is to try not to hurt anyone. I think if we recognize, what I'm trying to say is, in our avodas Hashem, let's take it out of a technical, therapy, mental health issue to help my struggling kid. I got to work on myself and go to therapy and learn about my reactiveness, my trauma, and, not approach that question or issue from a mental health position, but shift into a place of the most heilig avodas Hashem, more heilig probably than any mitzvahs. It could be, if I'm right, the Chazon Ish said that too, that it's more chashuv than all mitzvahs, is to reach a place of your own self-perfection where you don't hurt anyone. Because imagine what our children will be zeicha to when we create that in who we are, so that we can repair those attachments, connect them to us, and change their destiny and ours forever. I argue it's avodas Hashem of the highest level. There is no higher level.
Why do you feel it's holier than tefillin and it's the highest level?
Because it brings us to HaKadosh Baruch Hu directly. It's the Dov Kabbai. It's going to bring us there. All mitzvahs, the Ari Kaddish says, they're eitzahs, how to get there. This is the pinnacle of all the eitzahs.
Dveikus,
Attachment. To reconnect, to connect to Hashem in a humble way. There is nothing higher than that. So the kids gift us this, because if we don't do this, we can't connect with them. I mean, what a holy thing. This is the way to come to Shavuos and Kabbalah.
So you're saying attachment with Hashem really means true attachment with self.
With self, of course.
True attachment with all your parts, with your core, experiencing gratitude for every moment of life. And only then can you show up for your children.
That's right. Only then can you show up for your children. Only then can you have an authentic journey in your Torah mitzvahs and Dveikus B'Yisparach. Only then.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
This class is brought to you by theyeshiva.net. Please help us continue the classes. Make even a small contribution at www.theyeshiva.net/donate.